hopefully Samantha that should deal with that whilst at least I'm speaking. I'm going to start with a few slides just around the college itself, but here's an overview of what the college, this presentation is going to cover. So we're going to have a look at very quickly who we are and what we offer, and what the college does. And then we're more or less going to go straight into Sarah discussing how to become a solicitor. If you're specifically from a non-law grad background, and we'll go through a few different routes. We'll look specifically to our graduate foundation law program, and then what we'll have a look at the end is how to get onto those courses, when they start, and some considerations to think about, as there's a lot to think about when trying to transfer into law itself from a different background. So to give you that first quick understanding of who we are, so we are the College of Legal Practice. We're an accredited, fully virtual postgraduate law school in the UK. And what's very different about us to other education providers, we sit within the not-for-profit parent group headed by College of Law Australia. So College of Law Australia, one of the biggest law providers out and down under, and we sit as part of their not-for-profit group. So the key thing there is where some education providers, maybe private companies, every bit of money we make, we pump back into providing to our students and to making the education experience with us as best as possible. So, which is why, one, you'll see that our prices might be slightly lower in comparison to other education providers, but also our digital platform Canvas, which Sarah's going to go through in a bit, also offers a lot of great learning experience. There's a number of things that we aim to achieve as an online law education provider. Firstly, it's to be accessible and affordable legal education. We wish to be able to get as many people into the profession as possible. So we don't wish to have a campus, so anybody can access everything we do from wherever you want to. But it also means being online, you're able to kind of go through a lot of the activities in the study that Sarah will discuss soon, whenever you need to as well. So it's not a fixed learning schedule, so it makes it as accessible and easy as possible for you as the learner. Facilitate increased access to the profession. So from that point above, we want to make sure that law as a profession is accessed by as many people as possible at any time. So if there's anything that might have been restrictive to you in the past, hopefully the way we teach, the way we provide access, offers you the opportunity to be able to get into the profession where you might not have previously been able to. And we wish to develop every individual's unique potential. We have some of the highest one-to-one experience and one-to-one support on the market. So being able to speak to a number of supervisors throughout your kind of time on the programme is nearly more or less unrivaled. So we try to offer the best opportunity and a diverse learning programme to fit an excellent amount of needs. Personal and targeted individual support, so I kind of mentioned it there with the one-to-one supervision we provide, but also town hall surgeries, dependent on the course, workshops, group work, discussion boards. There's so many different ways you can interact with your peers and also the academics who are teaching you and your supervisors. We also have a collegiate approach with regular contact with your supervisors and tutors, as I just mentioned. So there's so many different ways in which we try to provide a different learning experience whilst not having a campus or having a campus experience which is against the grain, but we think it's going fantastically against the grain at the moment. So moving on, the first slide we wanted to cover is just how to become a solicitor. So hopefully I'll turn my mic off now and hopefully maybe some noise will drop out so we can all hear Sarah.
Okay, well, I'm hoping that it is now sorted. I think it is, yes. I'm not getting any feedback from myself, so I'm hoping that that's also the case at your end as well, everyone. So before we get into sort of some of the issues in relation to what you need to think about in order to become a solicitor, I thought I'd give you an overview of the new route to qualification, which you may have heard about, and it's called the SQE route to qualification. And this replaces the old route of a legal practice course, a law degree, legal practice course, and a 2-year training contract. So that's now been wiped away. And now what is required is a degree, so not necessarily a law degree. And moving on from there, you need to undertake the 2 national gateway exams, which are set by the SRA, which are called SQE1 and SQE2. So we've borrowed this jigsaw from the SRA publicity to show how this all fits together. So as I said, you've got a law degree, a degree in any discipline first of all. Then another component is your gateway exams, together with a 2-year period of qualifying work experience. Put those all together and making sure that you meet the SRA suitability requirements, and that means that you are then able to qualify as a solicitor. The main difference between this and the other way in which to become a solicitor is the fact that you are no longer required to undertake a law degree, or if you come from a different discipline, undertake a conversion course in order to become a solicitor. The SRA don't have that as a requirement anymore. However, obviously, if you do come from a non-law background, then obviously you need to make sure that you've got the foundations that a law student would have studied at an undergraduate level before you move on to the SQE courses and the SQE exams. And the reason for this is that the SQE set of exams are a rigorous, intense set of exams covering 13 practice areas, which range from academic practice areas which you would typically study as an undergraduate law student, together with postgraduate vocational studies, which you would previously have studied as part of the vocational course under the legal practice course. So those students going straight from a law degree to the SQE exams are obviously at an advantage to those from a non-law discipline, because they've already got some of those foundational subjects under their belt. So in terms of becoming a solicitor, we suggest that you perhaps need to have an introductory foundation to getting those foundation subjects under your belt before you step onto the SQE pathway in order to tackle those intense, rigorous SQE exams. So as I say, you're not required to do that. You could go straight to SQE1 and SQE2, but in terms of making sure there's a level playing field with those law graduates, we would highly recommend that you do undertake some sort of graduate foundation in law in order to put you on the same page and at the same stage as those law graduates coming from a law degree. So that is the sort of jigsaw that you have to put together in order to qualify as a solicitor. And you don't have to do that in any particular order. So obviously the first thing to do is make sure you've got your degree or equivalent under your belt. But then in terms of the purple and orange jigsaw pieces, you can do those in any order that you like. So a lot of people will, alongside studying for their SQE exams, will perhaps get some qualifying work experience, as long as that's in a legal environment and covers some of the competencies that you're required to undertake as a solicitor. Then a lot of people do that qualifying work experience alongside studying for their SQE exam. So that's sort of work as you learn. And that's a big difference from the old regime, where traditionally speaking, you would have followed a very linear path to qualification. You'd have done your law degree and or your conversion course, you'd have done your legal practice course, and then you'd moved on to a training contract. And training contracts were very much like gold dust, very hard to come by. So the SRA felt that the QWE route and the SQE route would open up and diversify the legal market to enable more people to qualify as solicitors. So just in terms of how that fits in, that pathway, that SQE pathway fits in with the courses that we offer in order to help you on your route to become a solicitor. This is on the right hand side of this slide, and we're really going to be focusing on perhaps the first two yellow and green tiles, if you like. So as I said, if you're coming from a non-law background, we would highly recommend some sort of graduate foundation in law program. And what we have done is we've designed one, and we'll go into more detail about this in a minute. We have designed one that specifically is designed to feed into the SQE exams and the preparation courses that we run in order to get you ready for those exams. So our course is an accelerated route. It's 20 to 40 weeks, and I'll go into more detail in a minute about that. And then once you've moved on from the graduate foundation, you'll then move on to looking at our preparation modules in order to get you ready for those SQE exams. And you can do those either as standalone courses, or you can wrap it up in an LLM in legal practice. And that's what the other tiles on this slide show, is the other elements of the LLM in legal practice if you do decide to wrap up your preparation modules into that award. So that is very much an overview of the new pathway to becoming a solicitor and how it compares very briefly with the old route, which some of you may be familiar with.
What I'd really like to do here, Sarah, before we move on, is just ask a couple of questions around, I guess sometimes what we get is feedback from other events that we do where we get a lot of questions around from non-law graduates. One question we always get is, what's the difference between a GDL and a GFL? Would you be able to kind of dispel the difference for us?
Absolutely, Matt.
Absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely, Matt. So as I said, so I'll first of all demystify all the acronyms. In law, we like to use loads of acronyms, much to the annoyance of other people. So GDL stands for Graduate Diploma in Law. And this, under the old regime, was one of the compulsory stages that a non-law graduate would have to go through if they wanted to become a solicitor. So if you came from a non-law background, you do your degree in your discipline, and then before you could move on to the vocational aspect of the qualification pathway, you would have to do the GDL, or the Graduate Diploma in Law, which essentially gave you the foundational subjects in those subjects which a law student would have studied as part of their LLB or their undergraduate qualification. So it's that transition to enable you to have those foundations, as I've said. So that's the GDL, and that was compulsory, so you had to go through that stage. The GFL, which we call the Graduate Foundation in Law, as I say, is no longer a compulsory requirement to go through that transitional stage in order to move on to the SQE pathway to qualification. But the GFL is designed to replicate in part that transitional course that the GDL represented. However, as I've said already, the GFL that we've designed is very much focused on practical functioning legal knowledge, that knowledge you need to make sure that you're going to hit the ground running when you get onto the SQE preparation courses. And it's specifically designed with the SQE assessment specification in mind. So you learn what you need to learn, you learn it at an accelerated pace in order for you to be able to step onto that all-important SQE course as quickly as possible.
Amazing, thank you. I had one other thing I wanted to touch on before we moved on. I think the statistic is around 40% of graduate programs in law firms, etc., are non-law graduates. So clearly there's quite a big market out there for non-law graduates transitioning into the market. What do you think the perks are for non-law graduates going for, graduate jobs into law firms and etc., based off not having studied, the initial program in law?
Okay, so I think there's lots of benefits to actually coming from a non-legal background, particularly sort of from the science backgrounds, or perhaps some of the arts subjects like history. You've got those rigorous analytical skills that are required to become a lawyer, as well as logical thinking, logical progression of thought, and that's what law firms are looking for. They're looking for sort of obviously you get those as a law student as well, but you from other disciplines you're very much got those transferable skills that law firms are looking for. And in addition, you also bring something extra to the table in the sense that your profile is wider. You might have a particular interest in a particular field. So, for example, you might be a scientist, and that might be really useful from the law firm's point of view, because remember that they've got clients. So they might have clients in the scientific world, they might have clients in the sort of arts world, and you can bring an additional dimension to that firm with the knowledge that you've got from your other disciplines. So I think there are a lot of advantages to being a non-law graduate as well as being a law graduate as well.
Amazing, thank you. I'm going to leave you to carry on with those slides now. I just wanted to jump in with those questions.
Thank you, Matt. Okay, so I'm now just going to give you a little bit more detail about our own graduate foundation in law, which, as I said, is that transitional course that's going to help you to hit the ground running when you get onto our SQE prep courses or another SQE prep course that you decide to do elsewhere. I've already mentioned it's accelerated. So traditionally speaking, your GDL, so that graduate diploma in law, which you used to have to be required to do, was traditionally about 1 year if it was full-time or 2 years if it was part-time, so a long period of time. We recognise that students now want to get onto that pathway as quickly as possible, so we offer the accelerated route of a full-time 20-week course, or you can do it part-time over 40 weeks. And the reason we're able to offer it on that accelerated route is because we've really focused on those aspects of the foundation subjects that you need to be able to tackle SQE going forward. So yes, it has got an academic bent to it, but it's also very much wedded and grounded in practical functioning legal law knowledge as well. So in terms of what the syllabus covers, as I said, it's making sure that you're covering those foundation subjects. I won't reel them all off, but a couple of them are subjects you will have heard of. So criminal law, contract law, and tort law. Tort law is negligence, and perhaps if you've come across had a car accident or something like that will cover sort of personal injury, the claims you make in relation to that kind of claim. So there are 6 foundation subjects that make up the syllabus, which are mapped, as I say, onto those subjects that you as an undergraduate law student would have studied, and they're mapped onto 6 of the practice areas that you will study at the SQE stage. As well as that, before you get into those foundation subjects, we obviously want to make sure you've got a really good understanding of all the key legal principles and concepts that underpin our legal system. So we have an 8 workshop series of an introduction to law module to get you really well versed in all of those underpinning concepts and principles. Already mentioned the specific design is obviously for those who are wishing to springboard onto the SQE. So it's very much tailored with that objective in mind. And in terms of how the course is structured, obviously we're a completely online provider. So a lot of the work that you will be doing is what we call directed preparation. So you'll be using our online learning platform, which I'll be demonstrating in a minute. We use Canvas. You'll be using that to get ready for interactive workshops. So we have online synchronous workshops for each of the modules that you'll be undertaking. And all the preparation is very much directed. So it takes you step by step exactly through directed reading, preparation tasks, work that you need to draft in order to bring it to the workshops. And then at the workshops, you'll have your an opportunity to obviously ask questions about any of the prep, but also to go through the activities that you have prepared, as well as additional tasks that you'll be doing within the workshop environment. So the workshops are very much interactive. So they're interactive with your peers, so with other students who are on the course together, and they'll be facilitated by one of the college supervisors who will be a subject matter expert in the subject area, the foundational subject area, and they will lead the workshops for the particular subject that you're studying. So each foundation subject has 4 workshops, and then we break the 20 weeks and the 40 week up into blocks of teaching. So you'll have one block, which initial block, which is all about that introduction to law. You'll then have one block of teaching where you will undertake 3 foundation subjects, which will then lead to an assessment period in those 3 subjects. And then you'll have a final block of teaching for the remaining 3 foundation subjects with further assessments at the end. As well as those subject matter expert workshops, you're also going to be supported both as a cohort, as a group, by town hall meetings, which will be run by either myself as programme leader or by one of my colleagues, a module leader. And in addition, you'll get one-to-one support as well. So we offer very personalised individual supervisory support via our personal tutors, and they will meet with you at strategic points throughout the course to obviously keep you on track, assess your progress, give you tips for keeping on track and getting the most out of the course as you can. So that's the academic support. As well as that, we obviously want to make sure that you're supported from a wellbeing point of view. So we've got dedicated access to wellbeing support available through a partner organisation. Obviously, we also recognise that being an online provider, you want to make sure your IT is up to scratch. So we want to make sure that you've also got that IT support as well. So we want to make, obviously we're online, but we want to make sure that you're not feeling isolated at any point and that you've got a port of call for any of your queries. So just very briefly, got an outline here, a little table of how the 20-week and the 40-week even program compare. So just looking at the 20-week, you're looking at approximately 30 to 35 hours of study in order to get ready for those workshops that I have mentioned. So yes, it's going to be like a full-time job. So obviously that's going to be an important consideration in terms of how much time you've got to spare in order to study for your GFL, and we'll come on to that in a minute. Your 40-week one, still quite a lot of commitment required, but a little less onerous at 20 hours of study per week. And then on top of that, obviously at pinch points, such as getting ready for your assessments, you've got to factor in further time for obviously consolidating the work you've done, revising, and then writing up your assessments. Already mentioned the fact that on the full-time course, you have workshops. So that's two 2-hour workshops a week. And then on the part-time course, you get 1 2-hour workshop per week. And I've already mentioned the fact that obviously teaching is delivered in those blocks. And in terms of how we examine you, we don't have exams. It's all done through coursework assessments, which, as I say, are handed in at the end of each of those teaching blocks that I've just been through. So that is an overview of our course. So now I'd like to show you how it works in our online digital learning platform, which is Canvas. So what I'm going to do, you'll see here a snapshot of, well, you did see a snapshot of our pilot, which we ran, for our student cohort. Our student cohort in relation to one of the modules on the GFL. So what I'm going to just show you is how this works. So if you enrolled with us on our GFL, you would have access to the GFL homepage. And this essentially is the landing page when you open up Canvas. And essentially it's your first port of call for anything course related. So your homepage is like your online handbook. And I'll just scroll down just to give you a brief demonstration. So it tells you the learning outcomes that you'll be expecting to achieve by the end of each module.
Can't see your screen yet, Sarah.
Oh, sorry. Might help if I actually. Can you see it now?
Perfect.
Right. Sorry about that. Okay, so the home page, as I say, is your first landing page for when you log on to Canvas and the Graduate Foundation in Law. So this is like your online program handbook. So first of all, it will take you through all your learning outcomes that you'll be expected to achieve by the end of the program and also each module. Then it gives you some tabs that you can open in terms of what you're going to study on the module to give you an overview. So this one, as it was the pilot of the taught subject, gave you an overview of what you would be expected to complete for that particular module. And then it also very usefully gives you the format of study. So it explains exactly, as I said, this stage-by-stage learning process, taking you through the preparation all the way through to the learning that will take place in the workshop. So I will show you some of those activities now, and it also gives you, and it will do on the live pages, it also gives you a little bit of a breakdown of how your workload can be broken down to help you manage your time as well. So that's your home page. So now I'd just like to take you through to what a typical module will look like on the GFL. So obviously you can do that by clicking on the link to the modules. And this essentially, again, will take you through each of the steps of the module. And obviously in this case, because it's the pilot, there was only one particular workshop, but each of the modules will have 4 workshops. So let me just take you through what the typical workshop and the unit structure looks like. So first of all, every module will have an introduction page, and that again will set the scene in order to make sure that you know exactly what you've got to do and by when. So here you can see what the learning activities for this particular pilot involved. We were looking at negligence, we were looking at personal injury, and we were looking at some of the case and matter analysis you need to be able to understand in relation to this particular type of negligence. And it's all done, as I said, in a practical context. And here it was in the context of a case study relating to personal injury. So what we try to do is we try to make sure that it simulates real life practice as much as possible. So we'll make sure that all of the documentation you receive on the module is based on what it would look like in practice. So emails from a partner within the law firm, you'll get access to maybe witness statements from clients and other sort of live documents that you'd expect to see if you were dealing with this kind of thing in practice. But obviously what we're looking at is very much from a first principles point of view in terms of understanding the law that underpins that case study. So in terms of again, in terms of, so this tells you what you're going to be looking at. And then in terms of what you'll be expected to achieve by the end of the workshop and by the end of the preparation, again, there'll be very much line by line, stage by stage steps that will help you make sure that you complete the work as you should. In addition to obviously our own manuals, which we provide for you, you'll also have access to some legal databases. And the ones that we give you access to are 2 very well-known legal databases, which are known as Westlaw and Practical Law. And they are used both academically and in practice as well by lawyers. So again, it's a chance for you to really get to grips with how law is researched and how to use the databases both academically and in practice. So just in terms of again showing you the structure of the preparation activities, again you'll be taken stage by stage through each of the activities that you'll be asked to complete. And again, there'll be approximate timings. Again, the timings for the real workshops are going to be different to the ones here, but this was just a pilot. So you'll see when we scroll down that actually you have a range of different types of activity, both based on multimedia and also on reading as well. So you'll have access to, and I won't play this, but you'll have access to videos that will give you an overview of the particular tort that you're looking at. So here, personal injury is a type of negligence. So you would listen to a short video, and again, you'd have access to the transcript as well that you could then go back and look at if you wanted to. So here you can see you've got 3 videos that you'd be required to watch as part of your preparation. Then just in terms of going back to your module. As well as multimedia activities, you'll then be required to do some reading. So first of all, in order to get the context in which your reading takes place, you'll be asked to read a case study scenario. So again, I'll just quickly show you that very briefly so that you can see how much it simulates real life work. Here you can see you've got an email from a partner with some client information, and you have to extract the information from that case study as part of the work you do. Again, just to make it a realistic prospect, again, you can see that this is the kind of diagrams that perhaps you would be faced with if advising a client in relation to a personal injury matter. So again, very much trying to simulate what it would look like if you came across this as part of a law firm, if you were as part of their practice. So as well as understanding the context in which you're going to be undertaking your work, you then obviously need to get to grips with the law. So there are a number of ways in which you'd get to grips with the law. So first of all, we'd ask you to read our manual. So you have access to both hard copy and online manuals for each of the subjects that you're going to be studying. And in relation to making sure that you don't get overwhelmed by all the information, we direct you to the particular aspects of the manual that we want you to focus on for this particular workshop. So here you can see we're asking you to focus on chapters 2.1 and 2.2. So not the entire chapter 2, but just sections of it. In addition, we want you to get to grips with looking at other resources as well. So again, we refer you to directed journal articles or directed practice notes from the legal database that I mentioned. And then we also want you to actually look at primary source of law. And obviously one of the primary sources of law is legislation. So again, we direct you to a particular pieces of legislation that we want you to look at as part of the preparation. Then there'll be further activities, again directed to get you ready for that workshop. And then you, again, finally, at the end of the preparation, you'll be told what you need to bring to your workshop and what you'll be doing during that workshop in order to make sure that you're as prepared as possible for that environment. So that's excuse me, that's an overview of what the talk looks like. What the talk modules looks like. In addition to that, just so that you can see the support that is available. In addition, we also make sure that obviously you're kept up to speed with everything that's going on in relation to the module by way of announcements. So we'll post announcements that are going to be relevant to you on the GFL course. We also set up discussion boards where you can post questions about a particular legal issue, or if you've got a query just about how the GFL is running, those will be picked up as well by members of the GFL team. Excuse me. So hopefully that gave you a good snapshot of what the module looks like and how it would work in the Canvas space. Excuse me for my coughing. I've got a bit of a cold and it's coming out as a cough, so I apologize for that. But hopefully you were able to get a good insight into what our Canvas space looks like in terms of our learning activities. So just moving on to other considerations that you need to think about when deciding, first of all, obviously, are you going to do the GFL? Obviously, our very firm recommendation would be absolutely. But in terms of working out which is the best GFL Graduate Foundation course for you, there are quite a few key considerations you need to think about. And we've already touched upon this already, but the first one is how much time do you have to commit to your studies? So obviously, if you are already working, you can see the amount of time that has to be devoted to the full-time course. So if you are already working, then obviously the part-time course might be the better option. Bearing in mind that there will be times in the week when you will need to have some availability for those face-to-face workshops, those 2-hour workshops. Thinking about what kind of GFL is going to suit you, obviously you need to think about what is the approach to your studies. Are you looking for that practical functioning legal knowledge approach that we offer? In which case, obviously, our GFL is going to be perfect for you, but that's something really to think about. Again, another consideration is how quickly do you want to make that transition into law? as I've said already, we offer a very accelerated route compared with the traditional GDL routes. So again, that's something to bear in mind. But obviously, again, that needs to be factored into how much time you've got to commit to your studies. Another thing to think about is obviously that links into the time that you've got to commit to your studies is, are you already in legal employment? Because that will stand you in really good stead in helping you understand how the law that you cover in the GFL translates into the workplace. And again, as part of that qualification route to becoming a solicitor, then obviously that legal employment may also count towards your qualifying work experience that you need to accrue in order to qualify as a solicitor. And then finally, just the other point that I just want to mention again, it feeds into the time you need to set aside for your studies. Obviously, you've got to factor in, you will need, during those block periods, you will need to factor in some time to revise and make sure you have time to submit the assessments that take place at the end of each of those blocks. So that was a whistle-stop tour of some of the considerations you need to think about in order to transition to becoming a lawyer, but I'd be happy to take any further questions you've got about that at the end once Matt's been through the final few slides.
Thank you, Sarah. That was a wonderful, like you say, whistle-stop tour of how to become a solicitor, starting with the GFL and all the information about hours. Now, what I want to quickly cover, now Sarah has covered so much of what's already on this slide, so I wouldn't wish to continue saying or repeating the same stuff, but there's a couple of things on here that I think are really important for you as individuals considering a transition into law and what we offer as part of the package of being a student with us. A lot of what we offer is supported by that one-to-one work. It's a lot of what we do is not just about getting people on our courses and making sure that we get more people. For us, it's getting people on our courses and making sure you succeed in the journey you want to go on. And that's really supported by the one-to-one supervision that you get and the amount of contact time with academics and experts in fields. We give you and try to give you the best platform to be able to springboard onto the SQE, which leads on to my next best point. Obviously, the next route into the profession is through the SQE, and this GFL it lines you up as clear as possible to get onto that SQE preparation and start your journey to becoming a solicitor. That could be either through our SQE preparation courses, or we do a master's program. So if you wanted to take your academic level to the next stage, which would be through a master's, we also do an LLM. Which also gets you to that point as well. And our LLM includes SQE preparation as set modules. So you would sit the SQE as part of our LLM as well. So a lot of what we offer really springboards you to the next best step to becoming a solicitor in the UK. We also provide a 10% discount on SQE preparation courses in the LLM if you study the GFL with us. So there's just a tiny little incentive, but for us, that's just a minor incentive. We want you to be studying with us because of the supervision that we provide and the support that we give to our students. So to give you a bit of a brief update on where our courses are, we offer, like I said, and Sarah has said, both full-time and part-time courses. So you'll see that we have in just under a month's time now, we have a full-time GFL starting on the 3rd of October. We have another full-time starting in April next year, but our part-time one that starts in October at the same time as our full-time runs on a little bit longer and ends in July. You'll see on that right-hand column, we've actually aligned it to when the next SQE preparation courses start. So you'll see that they're only maybe a month apart, and once we know specific dates, once they're put in, will be maybe a few weeks. So you give yourself a really good opportunity to transition straight from that foundation level knowledge straight onto an SQE preparation course. So we line those up as best as we can to continue to support your journey, that there's no kind of stagnation in between. If you want to crack straight on, the opportunity is there for you to crack straight on into the SQE. So there's a lot for you to consider there. We've obviously got our closing dates. So if you're thinking about applying to one of those, either the full-time or the part-time starting in October, the deadline for that is the 19th of September. All applications go through our website, which I shall cover right now, the criteria and how to apply. So criteria for us for the rest of the calendar year is a UK undergraduate degree or equivalent. So if you studied in a different jurisdiction, in a different country, just the equivalent of a UK undergraduate programme. If English isn't your first language, so if you're based somewhere else in the world, we are an online college, so we have students from all corners of the world, which is fantastic. You'll need to provide an Ielts certificate of at least 6.5 overall and then 6 in each subject. From 2023, so if you're looking to study with us from a course starting in the next calendar year, you'll need to have, again, a UK or equivalent undergraduate degree, but for at least UK applicants, to put it specifically, is a 2-2 minimum. That will then be classified across all other jurisdictions as well, or the equivalency of. We will look to take applications from those who are below a 2-2. However, you might be required to have an informal interview with some of our college staff, our academics, and that's not because out of anything other than we want to make sure that it's the right course for you, and you're not putting yourself onto a course where you're going to pay for and then maybe struggle and not get the most out of it. So we want to make sure that prior to that application and you signing up to us as a student, we make sure that it's the best course for you and we know how to best support you through that program as well. So process-wise, like I said, all applications go through our website. So you can head to our page, and I'll put a link in the chat bar in a minute to the application page of our website. We try to turn around applications within 48 hours. Sometimes it's a little bit longer, so the 48 hours is a guide, but we try to turn them around as quick as possible. All programs that we have require a £150 deposit to book yourself onto. But if you have any questions around our academic process or admissions process criteria, please just drop us an email. We have an email that comes to myself and is also picked up by our student services team. Our student services team oversee the admissions process. info@legalpractice.com is where you'll be able to send any questions regarding that admissions process too. If you have questions outside of that, please shoot them to that as well. What we also have is a really fantastic SQE study group, or for individuals interested in the SQE, on LinkedIn. And I'll post a link to that group as well. And we always encourage people to join that, as we have members of staff and our academics who post in their fantastic kind of SQE guides or knowledge. But we also have current students in there who post what they're currently doing, so you can get a real understanding how they're finding the SQE. But then we also have students, prospective students, posting their asking questions as a great forum to find out more information to help them make an informed decision. So I'll put the links in there. We also have a number of social media accounts that you should follow us on. If you want to find more out about the SQE, we're doing a workshop on Thursday, the 8th, so this coming Thursday, on Legal Cheek. So Legal Cheek do a fantastic, lovely big fair where lots of different providers come in and do workshops and webinars and have booths. And we're going to be doing kind of an overview of the SQE, what the SQE is, and how to study for it, and also then specifically in relation to our preparation courses. So if you want to find out more about our approach to the SQE specifically, feel free to come along on Thursday to our Legal Cheek event as well. But I wouldn't want to take any more time, and we've had quite a few fantastic questions come into the chat. And I saw one we had from Samantha straight away, which I think is a great question. Sarah, I don't know if you've managed to read through it so far, but if you're able to jump straight in and answer Samantha's question, that would be brilliant.
I have, Matt. Thank you very much. Yeah, so that's a really good question, Samantha. Obviously, you have already studied law to quite some degree as part of your undergraduate and also your postgraduate studies. And what I would suggest you do is, I would suggest that perhaps you might not need to do the GFL, but what I would do is I would check the SQE1 assessment specification, which is on the SRA website, which basically breaks down essentially the different practice areas and the degree of knowledge that you need within each of those practice areas. And then you can basically have a look at that, see what you've covered already, and then maybe make a decision from there. What I would say is, obviously your degrees were some time ago, so it might be that even though technically speaking you might not need a GFL, it might be that it would be a good refresher, if you like. And the reason I say that is because essentially by the time you get onto the SQE, you really do need to hit the ground running. because not only do you have to get through 13 practice areas, but you have to get used to a really unique style of assessment, these multiple choice questions, which are quite rigorous and demanding. So that's another consideration to take into account, although I appreciate that obviously that has a cost implication for you. Does that help to answer your question?
We will hope so, but yeah. If you have any more questions, Samantha, it does, fantastic. I see we've got a question from Jane. Are the workshops compulsory? I.e., if I'm working full time and I can't arrange time off to attend, would this be a problem? Okay, Jane, that's another really good question. So they're not compulsory in the sense of you have to go along to them, but what we would say is that they are the space where you're really going to get a lot out of the preparation you've done, and it will really help to iron out any of those issues you've got as part of your preparation, maybe some misunderstandings or questions you've got, and it will also take your learning to the next stage in terms of developing that preparation material. So I would say that you're missing out on a valuable opportunity for if you can't take part in the workshops. There would be what we call guidance notes or exemplars that go along with the workshops. But to be honest, I think that the biggest feedback we got from the pilot was how much benefit the students got from the workshops in terms of that. The right degree of understanding and interaction with the supervisor. So they are a really important part of your learning journey, if you like. I think that if obviously you might miss the odd one, but if you really couldn't make any of them, and I think that would really sort of be not a good use of the GFL, if you like. One kind of follow-up question from me on that one. Sarah, because we're all online, are the workshops recorded? Are they able to be watched back, or do they have to be attended there and then? Okay, that's a really good question. Matt, would you mind? That's a really good question, Matt. We don't record the workshops, and the reason why we don't record the workshops is because they're meant to be a safe space for students to be able to put forward their own thoughts. And without sort of somebody reading it, sort of looking at it back and sort of misinterpreting it, or perhaps sort of just making students feel awkward about participating. So that's another reason why the going along to the workshops is a really valuable opportunity, because it is that safe space. They won't be those sessions won't be recorded, and so therefore obviously you're not going to be able to take advantage of what the experience and the facilitation that the subject matter expert supervisor is able to provide during those workshops. Obviously, some sessions are recorded, so the one that would be recorded would be group, cohort, town hall meetings. And the reason for the distinction is that's usually more because obviously it's the programme leader or the module leader giving out information, rather than it meant to be a sort of interactive dialogue between the students and the supervisor. Amazing, thank you, Sarah. Jane, I hope that answers your question. I hope you get to go have a nice conversation with your employer. So I hope that's answered your question. And we've had a question coming from Terence, who's asked, does the college provider offer partnerships with law firms or QWE providers like placements? Okay, thank you for that question, Terence. That's a really good question. Unfortunately, we don't offer placements or anything like that. We do have sort of links with firms and other legal employers, but we don't have any formal arrangements with them to offer placements. But obviously, if opportunities do come up that will be available, then obviously we do advertise. We would advertise that on the space for our students to take advantage of. But no, that wouldn't be part of the course curriculum, if you like, as a placement. I think that offers a really good follow-up question. Obviously, this presentation is targeted to those who are non-law graduates. What what can non-law graduates do to find QWE or placement opportunities and work in that space if they don't have maybe the same prior knowledge of the big law firms or the websites and the opportunities that a law graduate would have?
That's a really good question. So, and it's quite difficult to answer in the sense of there are lots of opportunities and publications out there. So, if, for example, you're already in a university, then you can go onto your careers hub and maybe go to the law space and have a look there. That will provide you with a lot of useful resources. Obviously, if you've got local connections, and that could just be, you know someone who works in a law firm, even if it's just a question of going along and having a word with somebody in the law firm, then obviously make use of those connections. It also pays off sometimes to just in your local area. Is maybe go and have a word, or maybe see if you can have a word with some of the local firms that are in your vicinity, and see whether they would be willing to take you on, just for, even if it's just for a chat or to get some insight there. You can also do some volunteering. So, for example, Citizens Advice Bureau is a really good avenue to start getting involved in some legal work, and there are other sort of voluntary organisations that offer legal advice or assistance, and those kinds of opportunities are a really good way to start getting some work experience in the legal field. And then it's the Law Society as well. The Law Society, which is the sort of the organisation, the umbrella organisation for solicitors. They have information and contacts on that on their website as well for ways in which to build up work experience as well.
Amazing, thank you. That kind of covered my next question as well, which was tips to find, legal experience and what to do. And we did have a question come in prior, which I guess just adds another layer to that question we've just gone through. And we had a question from an international student who said, being an international student, are there any limitations to trying to find QWE, and how can I do that as a non-law graduate as an international student?
That's another really good question. So essentially, what the so in terms of whether it has to be sort of English law, if you like, the SRA is not concerned as much with QWE being based on English law, because they're testing people's knowledge and understanding of English law, if you like, via the national exam. So there's SQE exams. What they're looking for is that you're exposed to the competencies, so those skills and technical areas that you would be exposed to as a solicitor. And obviously those are available in foreign law firms as much as they are, or foreign legal environments as much as they are in environments in the UK. What's important, so you can actually do your qualifying work experience anywhere in the world, and that would count. What's really important is, if you are going down that avenue, is that your qualifying work experience, although it doesn't have to be based on English law, has to be what's called signed off or confirmed by a solicitor who's on the roll of solicitors in England. So it has to. So that is a step that would have to be gone through if you were thinking of using your experience overseas to count as towards your qualifying work experience. You'd need to make sure it could be signed off by an English qualified solicitor. So that would mean some sort of obviously dialogue with them to make sure that they're happy with the experience that you've recorded, and that they're then happy. So they need to have some knowledge of the kind of activities you've done, some record of that, and to make sure it covered those competencies, and then could be signed off by them.
Fantastic. So you are full of knowledge, I must say. We have one last question, because I've just seen the time. Somebody who asked a question prior, who's a recent undergraduate and has gone into a different profession, are there benefits to having got work experience from a different profession before transferring into law?
That's a really good question as well. And I always like talking about those transferable skills, which I think I name checked right at the beginning of it. It's nice because it brings us full circle to the start of the presentation. So absolutely, I think non-law graduates bring, as I say, something really different, or can bring something really different to the table. So it's all about looking at those transferable skills that you might have got from the workplace, such as analysis, planning, case management. You might have been a project manager, for example, and that kind of experience can be transferred into the legal environment, because you have to manage a case, or you have to manage a project, a transaction. Absolutely. So have a look at those qualities that you perhaps might see you need as a solicitor, and you'll probably find that a lot of those qualities, bar obviously the legal knowledge, but a lot of those qualities and skills that you may have acquired in another profession or academic discipline will actually transfer really nicely into the legal environment. So absolutely, it's all about those transferable skills.
Amazing, thank you. Well, that's the end of our questions and the end of the webinar today. I hope everybody that's attended has found it extremely informative and has given you kind of more ideas and hopefully even more questions. If you scroll up the chat, you'll see I would have popped in our LinkedIn group the link to our Legal Cheek event on Thursday, which both me and Sarah will be attending. So if you've got more questions, you can find us there again. What we'll do post this is you'll get an email from the college with the presentation slides on, with a recording to the YouTube link. This will either be today or tomorrow, and we'll also have in there maybe some tips on finding the Legal Cheek event, other considerations for getting into the SQE routes. So if you have any questions, feel free to drop those back to us there, or head to that LinkedIn group and you can find us on there and you connect with us via LinkedIn. But really hope you've enjoyed today's webinar on becoming a solicitor from a non-law grad background, and we hope to speak to you soon. Thank you.
Thank you very much for attending.